Don't go home tonight. Use the back stairwell. Your husband is not alone. She said it like she was reading a grocery list. Flat. Certain. Like she'd already seen how this ended and was just doing me the courtesy of a heads up. I was standing outside the elevator in the parking garage of St. Catherine's Medical Center, badge still clipped to my scrubs, my feet so tired they'd stopped sending pain signals an hour ago. I'd just finished a 12-hour shift in the pediatric ward. All I wanted was a shower and whatever was left of the Thai food we'd ordered 2 nights ago. The woman was maybe 70, maybe older, hard to tell. She had the kind of face that doesn't age so much as deepen, lines carved in by weather and experience, not time. She was sitting on the concrete ledge near the stairwell door, which was strange enough that I'd noticed her from 30 feet away. Visitors don't usually linger in parking garages at 9:15 on a Tuesday. She wasn't dressed for the hospital. No badge, no scrubs, no visitor lanyard. Just a heavy wool cardigan despite the August heat, and hands folded in her lap like she'd been waiting a while and had made peace with it. I almost walked past her. I did actually, for about 4 steps. Then I stopped. I don't know why. I'm a nurse. I deal in evidence, in vitals, in things you can measure. I don't believe in gut feelings or premonitions or whatever this woman was offering. But I stopped. What did you just say? She looked at me without surprise. Your husband is not alone. Use the back stairwell. Don't let him hear you come in. I stared at her. My brain ran through the rational explanations in about 2 seconds. Wrong person. Confused. Early dementia. Some kind of scam setup though for what I couldn't imagine. I think you have me confused with someone else, I said. She shook her head slowly, not arguing, just certain. I got in the elevator. I pressed the button for level 3 where my car was parked. The doors closed. I watched my own reflection in the scratched metal. 31 years old, ponytail falling out, mascara I'd put on at 6 in the morning still somehow hanging on. A woman who had married her college boyfriend at 26, bought a house in the suburb at 28 and was currently mentally planning whether to reheat rice or just eat cereal standing over the sink. The elevator opened. I walked to my car. I sat in the driver's seat for 2 minutes without starting it. Then I drove home. And I parked 2 houses down. I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I wasn't thinking at all. Maybe my body made a decision my brain hadn't caught up to yet. I turned off the headlights before I pulled to the curb, sat there in the dark, feeling genuinely ridiculous, watching our house. His truck was in the driveway, the bedroom's light was on, the living room was dark, nothing unusual, perfectly normal. I almost started the car again. Then I saw the second set of shadows moving behind the bedroom curtain. We'd been married 4 years. His name is my husband. I'm not going to use his name here, not because I'm protecting him, because he doesn't deserve the space his name takes up. We met in college, junior year, in a statistics class neither of us wanted to be in. He was in pre-law then, switched to business administration by the time he graduated, worked his way into commercial real estate by 30. He was good at it. Charismatic in that particular way that makes people trust you before they have any real reason to. That was the thing about him. He was convincing. He convinced me he was ready to be a partner when he was still figuring out how to do his own laundry. He convinced me the big house was a smart investment, not a status purchase. He convinced me that transferring my name onto the mortgage as the primary borrower made sense, because his credit score had taken a hit after he co-signed his brother's car loan. A story that, I now know, was true in its bones and completely rearranged in its meaning. He was always doing that. Giving you real facts in a false frame. For the last 8 or 9 months, I'd been chalking his distance up to the stress of a difficult year. A deal that fell through in the spring. His father's health declining. The usual friction of 2 people in their early 30s navigating careers and a mortgage, and the unspoken question of when we were going to start a family that neither of us had the energy to actually ask out loud. I'd been patient. I'd been understanding. I'd been, and I hate this word now, accommodating. I'd also been, apparently, convenient. I went in through the back door. We never used it. It opened into the laundry room, and the lock stuck if the humidity was up, which in South Carolina it always is. I'd complained about getting it fixed for 2 years. He'd never gotten around to it. For once, I was grateful for his follow-through problem. I got the door open on the 3rd try, slipping in sideways, easing it shut behind me. The washer was running. He'd started a load of laundry. I remember thinking, he never does laundry. And then I remember my hands starting to shake. I stood in the laundry room for a long moment listening. The TV was off. I could hear voices from upstairs, low and unhurried, the particular cadence of a conversation between people who feel safe. I did not go upstairs. I went to his office. The door was open. His laptop was on the desk, still awake, screensaver not yet kicked in. I don't know what I was looking for. Evidence of the obvious maybe, or evidence of something worse. I sat down in his chair and I looked at what was open. 3 tabs, his email, a spreadsheet I didn't recognize, and a document with my name in the header. It was a quitclaim deed. For people who don't know what that is, and I didn't, fully, until I was staring at it, a quitclaim deed is a document that transfers ownership of a property from one person to another. Fast. Minimal paperwork. No title search required. You sign it, it gets notarized, it gets filed, and whatever interest you had in the property is gone. My name was in the field labeled grantor. The person giving up ownership. His name was in the grantee field. The person receiving it. There was a notary stamp already on it. A date from 6 days ago. I sat very still. Then I looked at the spreadsheet. It was a financial summary I recognized. We had a joint account and a joint savings account and a joint investment portfolio that we'd started building 3 years ago. Partly with my inheritance from my grandmother, partly with my income during the 2 years when he was still getting his business off the ground and I was the household's primary earner. The balances were there, accurate, but there were also transfer notations I'd never seen, moving funds into an account with a routing number I didn't recognize, scheduled for the end of the month. The end of the month was 11 days away. I took photos of everything, the deed, the spreadsheet, every visible email on the screen. My hands were shaking badly enough that 3 of the photos were blurry, but I got clear shots of what mattered. I airdropped them to myself. I emailed them to my personal account, not the joint account we shared, the one I'd had since college that he didn't have the password to and had no reason to think about. Then I heard footsteps upstairs. A door opening. I slipped out of the office and back into the laundry room. Stood behind the door. Heard him walk into the kitchen above my head. Open the refrigerator. Close it. A woman's voice said something I couldn't make out. He laughed in a way I hadn't heard in months. Easy, unguarded, real. I knew that laugh. I'd fallen in love with it. I pressed my back against the wall and breathed through my mouth and waited. When I heard them go back upstairs, I left. I sat in my car 2 houses down for a long time. My first instinct was to call my best friend. I didn't. Not because I didn't trust her. I did completely. But because I needed to not be crying and talking at the same time. I needed to be thinking. I'm a nurse. I spend my days making decisions under pressure with incomplete information. I do not fall apart in the middle of a crisis. I fall apart after, in the parking lot, once the patient is stable. That's a professional habit that turned out that night to be a personal lifeline. Okay, facts. He was having an affair. Established. There was a quitclaim deed with my signature, transferring ownership of my house to him. I had not signed any quitclaim deed, which meant he had either forged my signature or somehow gotten me to sign something without understanding what it was. I went back through the last 6 months in my head. Paperwork he'd asked me to sign. There was the refinancing. We'd refinanced in February when rates dropped. And I'd signed a stack of documents at a title company while running late for a shift and trusting him to have reviewed everything. There was the tax filing. There was something about the investment account. I felt sick. The transfers. He was moving money out of our joint accounts. Most of that money was mine. From my grandmother's estate, from my years of higher earnings, from contributions he'd benefited from during the years he was building his business, and the house. I had brought the down payment. The mortgage was in my name because his credit was compromised. The house was structurally, financially mine. And there was a deed out there that said it wasn't anymore. He hadn't just cheated on me. He'd been building a way out for a long time. And he'd been building it using my assets. I thought about the woman in the parking garage. I didn't understand how she knew. I still don't. But I was very glad, sitting in the dark outside my own house, that I had stopped for 4 steps instead of walking straight to my car. I spent the night in a hotel 3 miles away. I know that sounds dramatic. It wasn't. It was the most clear-headed decision I made all night. I did not want to go home. I did not want to be in that house with him, pretending I didn't know what I knew, and I was not yet ready to confront him. Not without a lawyer, not without understanding the full picture. I called my hospital's employee assistance line, which I'd recommended to patients' families maybe 100 times without ever calling myself. They connected me with an attorney referral service. I left a voicemail at 11:15 at night, knowing I wouldn't hear back until morning, but doing it anyway because I needed to be doing something. Then I pulled up every financial account I had access to online and documented everything. Every balance, every recent transaction, every scheduled transfer, screenshots of all of it, organized into a folder in my phone's cloud backup. The backup account, notably, that I'd set up with my college email and had never mentioned to him because there'd never been a reason to. I was thorough. I may have been running on adrenaline and the kind of focused calm that I recognize in myself as a precursor to a breakdown that I was very deliberately postponing, but I was thorough. At 2 in the morning I sent him a text. Hey, exhausted after shift, going to crash at the hospital's staff housing tonight rather than drive. See you tomorrow. I had never done this before, there was no staff housing. He had no reason to know that. He replied in 4 minutes. Okay, sleep well, drive safe tomorrow. I stared at that for a while, drive safe tomorrow. From a man currently in my bed with another woman, having already arranged to steal my house and drain my accounts. The audacity, the complete breathtaking audacity. I put my phone face down on the hotel nightstand and stared at the ceiling for a very long time. The attorney called back at 8:15 the next morning. Her name was someone I will simply call my attorney, which is all she needs to be in this story. She had been practicing family law in South Carolina for 19 years. She had a voice that suggested she had heard worse and dealt with worse, and was not going to be surprised by anything I told her. I told her everything. She was not surprised. She told me 3 things that mattered. First, a quitclaim deed that was signed under fraud or duress, or signed without the grantor's knowledge of what they were signing, is a voidable instrument. Getting it voided would require legal action, but it was not a done deal. The property wasn't gone. Second, the transfers hadn't happened yet. They were scheduled, which meant there was still time to take protective action on the joint accounts. Third, in South Carolina, marital assets, including assets brought into the marriage and commingled, are subject to equitable distribution in divorce. My grandmother's inheritance, the money I'd contributed, during the years I was the primary earner, the investment portfolio built largely with my funds, none of that simply belonged to him by default. She told me to come to her office at 10. I drove there directly from the hotel, still in yesterday's clothes, with my phone full of screenshots and a very clear picture of what I needed to do. I won't detail everything that happened over the next 72 hours, because some of it is still technically in process, and my attorney has opinions about what I should and shouldn't say publicly. What I can tell you is the outline. I filed for a freeze on the joint investment account through the brokerage's fraud prevention line. I have a healthcare background. I know how to explain a situation in terms that trigger a compliance review. I use those terms. The account was flagged for review pending investigation, and the scheduled transfer was suspended automatically. I called my bank's fraud division and reported potential unauthorized movement of marital funds. That froze the joint savings. My attorney filed an emergency motion related to the quitclaim deed. I won't pretend I understood every step, but I understood the outcome. The deed was flagged in the county records system, its validity was formally contested, and no further transfer of the property could be processed while the matter was in litigation. Then my attorney did something I hadn't asked for, but that I think was smart. She sent a formal letter to his real estate brokerage, which is a licensed firm operating under state regulations, noting that one of their agents appeared to be involved in a dispute involving potential financial fraud and forged documents. She did not make accusations. She simply noted the involvement. Licensed professionals don't love having their names attached to pending fraud investigations. It was a productive nudge. Through all of this, he thought I was at work. I came home on Thursday evening, drove up in the driveway like nothing had happened, walked in through the front door. He was in the kitchen. He looked up when I came in, and for just a second, less than a second, something moved across his face. Not guilt, not yet. More like a man checking his work, running a quick internal inventory of whether everything was still in order. It wasn't. Hey, he said, long week? You could say that, I said. I sat down at the kitchen table. I put my phone on the table face up. I looked at him. I need you to tell me about the quitclaim deed. He went very still. The inventory check was clearly not coming back clean. I don't know what. Don't, I said. Just that one word. And I think the particular flatness in my voice, The way I'd been a nurse for long enough that I could say hard things without flinching, communicated that we were past the part of this conversation where denial was worth his time. He tried anyway. For about 4 minutes you signed it. You knew what it was. It was for tax purposes. Our accountant suggested it. You were always going to be on the title in a different form. You don't understand how property structures work. He kept saying, you don't understand. He said it 6 times. I know because I was counting. I had a 12-hour shift the day we closed the refinance, I said. I signed 14 documents in 11 minutes. You were there. You told me what each one was. That's not. Did you tell me one of them was a quitclaim deed transferring my ownership of this house to you? Silence. Did you tell me that? More silence. Then. You're being irrational. You're tired. You're reacting to something you don't have the full context for. I thought about every time I'd been called irrational. Every time I'd been told I was reacting, every time he'd handed me a simplified version of reality and waited for me to accept it because I was busy or tired or trusting or some combination of all three. The investment account transfer is frozen, I said. The savings account is frozen. The deed has been contested in county records. My attorney filed this morning. He stopped talking. And I said, I have photos of everything that was on your laptop screen on Tuesday night. The deed, the transfer schedule, the emails. That was when he got scared. I could see it. Not the fear of someone who's been caught doing something embarrassing, but the fear of someone whose plan has just evaporated while they were still mid-execution. He'd been careful. He'd been patient. He'd built something over months, probably longer, and he'd done it quietly. And he had believed, the way people who think they're the smartest one in the room always believe, that he'd thought of everything. He had not thought of the back stairwell. He had not thought of an old woman in a parking garage. He had not thought of me. You went through my computer, he said. You forged my signature on a legal document, I said. We're going to have a conversation about proportionality some other time. He left that night. Went to his brother's, I think. I changed the locks the next morning. My attorney advised that given the contested property status, I had the right to remain in the home. And he did not. He could have argued it. He didn't. I think he understood that the fight he thought he was going to have had changed shape entirely, and he needed time to get new lawyers. What he didn't know, and what I hadn't told him, was that I'd also spent Tuesday and Wednesday documenting his professional activities. The quitclaim deed had been notarized by a notary associated with his brokerage. Some of the financial structures he'd attempted to use involved instruments that, depending on how they were deployed, would look very interesting to the South Carolina Real Estate Commission. I'm not a vindictive person. I want to be clear about that. I did not set out to destroy his career. I set out to protect what was mine. But he had spent 4 years building his professional reputation, and he had chosen to use it as a tool to defraud his wife. Those are not two separate things. The commission was going to find out eventually. I just made sure it was sooner. There are things that still don't have clean answers. The old woman in the parking garage. I've been back to St. Catherine's parking structure every day for 3 weeks. She's not there. I asked the 2 security guards who work that level. They don't remember her. The hospital has no record of anyone matching her description checking in as a visitor that night. There's no good explanation for that. What she said to me was specific and accurate. I don't have a framework for that. I'm a person who deals in clinical evidence, and I genuinely do not know what to do with the fact that a stranger in a wool cardigan in a hospital parking garage in August apparently knew something was wrong in my house before I did. There are other things I still think about. If I had walked to my car instead of stopping. If I had driven home the normal way and walked in through the front door and gone upstairs. I would have found him, and I would have had the confrontation, eventually, when it became impossible to avoid. But the deed would have already been on file, the transfers would have gone through 11 days later, and I would have been standing in a divorce, proceeding with significantly less than I was entitled to, confused about documents I didn't remember signing, up against a man who was much more prepared for the legal fight than I would have been. The financial damage alone would have taken years to untangle. Maybe would never have been fully untangled. He had counted on me being predictable. Coming home the same way, the same time, trusting him, accepting his explanations, being too busy or too tired or too in love to read the fine print. For 4 years, he had been mostly right about all of those things. He just happened to be wrong on one Tuesday night in August. Because an old woman stopped me in a parking garage. I don't know who she was. I don't know what she knew or how she knew it. I've thought about this probably more than is useful, and I've landed somewhere in the middle of two explanations. Maybe she was a stranger who'd overheard something, or seen something, or somehow knew someone connected to this situation in a way I'll never trace. Or maybe there are things in this world that a 12-hour shift in a pediatric ward and a statistics class and 4 years of clinical training don't fully account for. I lean practical, I always have, but I stopped for those 4 steps, and I used the back stairwell, and I didn't make a sound and I'm still in my house, whatever she was. Thank you. I heard you.